Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Exceptional Stories and the People Who Live Them. Your host is Steve Dover, a special needs advocate, the father of 2 special needs sons and a grandfather to 1. This is a faith-based, in-depth conversation-style podcast with and for parents of special needs children. Each episode will feature parents of special needs kids who are making a difference. Every day, these superstar parents tackle the challenges of life. This podcast will let you have a front row seat to hear how they do it, why they do it, and what you can learn from their experiences as they share their exceptional stories. Let's get started. Thank you for listening to Exceptional Stories and the People Who Live Them. We hope you've been enjoying the inspiring tales and remarkable individuals we've had the privilege to feature on our show. Your support means the world to us, and here's a simple way. You can help us continue to bring you these exceptional stories. If you found value in this episode, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to include the episode number or guest name in your review. These ratings and reviews boost our visibility and allow more people to discover the incredible stories we share. Plus, it lets us know that you're enjoying the content and find it valuable. So take a moment right now to leave that 5-star rating wherever you listen to our show. Your feedback fuels our passion to keep bringing you these exceptional stories. Thank you for being a part of our podcast community. Stay tuned for more heartwarming and extraordinary stories in the weeks to come.
Thank you so much for being with us this week. I have a very special guest with me that I want to introduce to you. I want you to get to know her and her daughter and just kind of hear some of the things that they have gone through and some of the things they have experienced on their journey. I want you to hear their exceptional story. I have with me today Rebekah Freeman, and she and I met through a mutual acquaintance. I interviewed Sherry Brown on episode 4. And when Sherry and I got off the feed, Sherry said, I'm going to send you some names. I'm going to send you some names. And one of the names she sent me was Rebekah. And I reached out to her and invited her to come on the podcast. She graciously accepted. And so she has sent me her story, basically, and I read it, but I want you to hear it. I want you to hear her tell it. We're going to be talking today about her 15-year-old daughter, Sarah Hope. And these are her mom's words that she is a social butterfly. We will get into that and see just exactly what all that entails. But Rebekah, I'm so glad you agreed to come on the podcast with me today. I'm glad to meet you. Good to finally meet you, and I look forward to hearing your story. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking about this Sarah Hope every chance I get. So,
yeah,
thank you.
I can tell by the smile on your face that it's it's a journey, but it's a fun one too. And you are blessed.
It's hard, but yes, it's a rewarding and such a blessing.
Absolutely.
Too.
Well, tell us about Sarah Hope. She's 15 years old, and just kind of get us through the birth and diagnosis, and kind of get us up to speed a little bit.
Okay, so her situation's kind of abnormal than most. We actually have never encountered anybody quite like hers. When I was pregnant with her, they did determine there was an issue with my umbilical cord. I had only 1 artery instead of 2, which is the norm. Uh-huh. And I personally believe that's what contributed to her defects and problems, because I just feel like she may not have gotten the nutrients and oxygen that she needed for development and growth.
Okay.
She was actually born a month early. We found that out after she was born. My due date was off by a month, but they had induced me, and when she was born, she had a nuchal cord, which I know is fairly common. But it tore at birth. So it was very abnormal, the umbilical cord. To me, she's just a miracle to have survived me carrying her. And part of me believes that, maybe she was born a month early so that she would be here, because maybe
Yeah.
she wouldn't be here if I had carried her full term. So, there's lots of questions in my mind and stuff, but I just trust God. I know that He's got her in the palm of His hand.
Mm-hmm.
So when she was born, well, when I was pregnant and they found out about the umbilical cord issue, they did tell me. I went to Birmingham for some more in-depth tests, and they
Okay.
did tell me with that type of situation that the child can be born with birth defects such as syndromes or heart, kidney problems, any
Mm-hmm.
number of problems. And so,
Okay.
sure enough, when she was born, she does have a mild heart issue. Later on, she did develop a small, well, technically she did have a lung issue at birth, but that was just because her oxygen, she was desatting, what they call it,
Right.
and her oxygen level wasn't up to norm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she does have like mild pulmonary stenosis and that type thing now.
Okay.
But she does have kidney problems. When she was first born, she had and I'm going to say it incorrectly, I know, the vesicourethral reflux. So from birth, she had been treated for that. Well, then a couple of years ago, they determined she's got kidney disease. So currently,
Okay.
she's stage 1. She had went up, which is not a good thing, to stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and soon after she was diagnosed, but now we're back down to stage 1, and we're just
Okay.
we're keeping a watch on that, trying
Mm-hmm.
to watch that. But she also has delayed development. She doesn't grow normally like
Mm-hmm.
other children do. If she wasn't so overweight now, she became overweight because of some medicine she had to take several years ago, and
Right.
um, her lack of mobility kind of contributes to her weight gain too
Mm-hmm.
now, and she's got some balance issues and that type thing.
Yeah.
Um, but she would be very small and petite if she wasn't overweight, because her hands are smaller than my 6-year-olds. And so, and
Wow.
her feet she's in toddler size shoes. Even though her
Mm.
feet swell, her toes are the smallest little toes I have ever
Wow.
seen, even for a newborn.
Yeah.
Even now at 15, they have not grown. I mean,
Yeah.
they're so tiny. So she does have, I guess technically, her official diagnosis is delayed development with an unknown
Mm-hmm.
syndrome, because we
Mm.
have done 4 to 5 genetic rounds of
Yeah.
testing, and they cannot determine, what syndrome she might have, but they have put her
Mm.
on a list to watch and kind of
Okay.
see if other people in the world might
Mm-hmm.
have similar traits to what she has, because she is so delayed in development.
Okay. What were um what were some of the initial challenges that you faced? You found this out shortly before she was born, that there
Yeah,
was going to be some type of problem. You didn't know what.
correct.
So what were some of the challenges you faced once she was born, and they're starting to put all these puzzle pieces together, so to speak? What was going through your mind at that time?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, Exceptional Stories family. We've got something very exciting to share. We want to put the spotlight on you. If you're a special needs parent or caregiver, we want to hear your questions for an upcoming Q&A episode. Send in your questions via email to exceptionalstoriespodcast@gmail.com, or leave us a 90-second voice message at speakpipe.com/exceptionalstoriespodcast. We're diving deep into the most common pain points faced by special needs parents, and your input will shape this crucial conversation. I can't wait to hear from you. Let's make this Q&A episode truly exceptional.
Well, honestly, I didn't know what was going on. I was very naive, first time mom, um, and I was I was heavily relying on my doctors and the nursing staff and that type thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a high respect for the medical profession, but then
Sure.
Sarah's situation has taught me to go with your gut. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they're wrong; they don't know,
Yeah.
and sometimes you just got to go with that gut feeling. So I didn't know at first that there was something wrong until my dad spoke up and he said, "When are we going to get to see her?" And it had been hours since she had been
Yeah.
born. And they had not come told us anything, had not said something's wrong, were
Mm-hmm.
concerned about her, anything. Thankfully, she wasn't as bad, as some children, born are. But
Yeah.
her oxygen levels were severely low.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were just keeping her under the ventilation hood, trying to get her oxygen and that type thing. And so
Yeah.
we finally got to see her, and she was just the most beautiful baby. She had like a porcelain skin, and
Oh, wow.
her features were just so prominent and
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And everybody used to comment, "She looks like a baby doll," and she really did. She just had the perfect features when she was born, when she was little. And then so we couldn't get her oxygen levels up, and then
Mm-hmm.
they became quite concerned, and she wasn't able to latch on, so I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
breastfeed her, but I was pumping, and she was having trouble latching on to the smallest little nipple
Yeah.
size on the bottles.
Right.
And so, all of that combined, and them knowing that there's something going on. She got transported from Anniston to Birmingham NICU at that time, and thankfully, it was a NICU that's no longer there, and I was able to stay with her. So it wasn't like a place where I had to leave and come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
So thankfully, I was able to stay, and she was there for 3 weeks, and we battled the oxygen and the feedings and those type things for 3 weeks. And I know several of my friends have had children in there so much longer time span, and I know that seems like such a small span for so many people, but it really is
Yeah.
an eternity when you don't know, you're uncertain, and
Mm-hmm.
you have all these specialists coming in and poking and prodding and looking and trying to see
Yeah.
what's wrong, what's the diagnosis. And
Mm-hmm.
she got poked every day. It
Yeah.
is not a day, probably an hour almost went
Mm-hmm.
by she wasn't being poked on.
Yeah.
And so I know she's a fighter. She's independent. She's quite independent.
Yeah.
And I know I'm kind of like that too. So I kind of like to think she gets some of those traits from me. But then I
Okay.
also know that she's been through a lot since she was
Yeah.
born, and she's had to fight. And so
Yeah.
she even has those traits now. But just those uncertainty times, that was the biggest struggle at first, was not
Mm-hmm.
knowing and trying to find out what was going on and then get her the right treatment that she
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
So that was the first initial struggle that we
Mm-hmm.
experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I have been there too. It's unnerving, especially when you're
Very.
a new parent and you're leaning on those doctors and those professionals to guide you and kind of just get you through this and tell you, even, get to the point to, even if it's bad news, just tell me.
Yes,
I
tell
want to
me.
know something.
Yes.
And then when the doctor looks at you and says, I don't know, that just takes all the wind out of your
Yes.
sails, or it can. And, but yeah, we've been there too. And, so much advancement has been made in,
Mhm.
genetics, birth defects. I mean, just about everything. But yet when they look at you and say, I don't know what's going on,
Yeah.
it's, and they refer to somebody else, and then somebody else says, well, I don't know what's going on either.
Absolutely.
You
I
finally
mean,
get to the point.
yes, we've been through so many specialists, ever since she's been born. And it's like, it's a constant riffraff. Some of them she's had since birth, and then some are
Mm-hmm.
new, and then some
Mm-hmm.
we've changed,
Yeah.
and that type thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard too when you go in and a nurse tells you, "Don't touch your child. Don't touch your child." And she's
Yeah.
not in an incubator or anything like
Yeah.
that where she can't be
Yeah.
touched.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is my child. I know my child, and
Mm-hmm.
she needs to feel me. She needs to
Yeah.
know that somebody is here with her. And that was,
Yeah.
I mean, that was the first. Also, other parents may have had to go through this too. That the first time that I've had to butt heads with people in the medical profession and stand
Mm-hmm.
up for my
Yeah.
daughter and
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And it comes to a point sometimes when you
Mm-hmm.
have to, especially when they don't know. When they
Yeah.
don't know and you have that gut feeling,
Right.
you got to stand up.
Mother's intuition.
Yes.
You're going to stand there and take care of that baby. And I've seen my wife do that, become the advocate for the child that cannot speak, that
Yes.
cannot tell you what's going on. Even in older years, did not understand what was going on and was nonverbal. So that's a role that you step into untrained. You
Yeah.
don't get a certificate or a T-shirt for it. I mean,
No.
you hit the ground running. Not only have you just had a baby and gone through that trauma on your body, but now you're having to put yourself aside and be an advocate and speak up for her because she
Mhm.
can't.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, and it's a learning process, and
it is.
she has taught me through the years how to become strong and how to stand. I was naturally more shy and introverted,
Hmm.
growing up, and I didn't speak out. I hardly
Yeah,
spoke out at all, and then now I'm not afraid to speak out when
yeah.
I have to.
Hmm.
I will, especially for her because she,
Yeah.
like you said, she's almost non-communicative. She's very limited what
Hmm.
she can say and
Okay.
tell you. So, you have to speak up for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned the kidney issue. Is that being regulated with medicine, or is it
Yes.
for
She's
now? Okay.
yes, she's currently on like blood pressure medicine, even though there's no blood pressure
Uh
issue.
huh.
That's one thing that helps filter the kidneys out.
Right.
And so that helps with her protein not being so high
Okay.
in her, urine function tests and all
Yeah.
that. It helps that. So, we've been doing good this last. She just recently had her 6 month checkup, and we got
Hmm.
a great report this time, better than
Good.
the last couple of years. So
Yeah.
very thankful. So now we're down to once a year,
Oh, good.
going to,
Okay.
instead of every 3 to 6
Right.
months. So we're to once a year right now. So that's great.
Keep doing what you're doing because it's obviously working.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, get us up to speed now. What are some issues now at 15 that she's facing as far as health challenges? You kind of sent me a pretty detailed description of some things that's going on, and I just kept reading. I was like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
never ending
yeah,
thing. It seems
yes, just
like
a roller
yes,
coaster ride.
it is.
So she's got the stage 1 kidney issue that you said. And is she nonverbal or just not
She's very limited.
limited? Okay.
Yes, she can say some words
Uh-huh.
like hug, tree, dog,
Hmm.
and you understand those.
Yeah.
But other words she cannot say.
Yeah.
They are working very extensively with her at her school, thankfully, on
Hmm.
teaching her the sounds and
Okay.
pronunciations. And she just got a communication device to help her communicate with others so that
Okay.
so that to try to carry on a conversation because she
Yeah.
loves people. She
Yeah.
loves to talk to people. She will
Yeah.
talk somebody's head off. It's just like they don't understand what she's saying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's another main thing we're dealing with is the communication. But after
Hmm.
when you're around her so long, pretty
Yeah.
much what she's
Yeah.
gonna do and say. But so that is one big issue right now. She did have she does have bad eyesight too, but we've had to have at least one eye surgery when she was younger. But for eye exams and stuff, she has to be put to sleep for those because
Hmm.
she does not do well for eye exams. Um, her teeth, she her teeth in itself, it's weird. She has no adult teeth hardly. So
Huh.
like they had to pull a lot of her baby teeth and she has
Yeah.
no teeth to replace them.
Huh.
So she, we're having to kind of gradually go across that bridge and
Yeah.
see how to handle that, but we're
Okay.
not quite there yet on
Yeah.
how we're going to be handling that. But
So they've x-rayed, there's no teeth
Correct.
In the
Yes.
gums,
None.
there's nothing up there.
Nothing.
Wow.
None.
I don't know that I've
So
ever heard that.
I haven't either. So that's just one of Sarah's things,
Yeah.
And so I think she does have a few. They said, but for a lot of the ones they had to pull,
Mm-hmm.
because they did have to go in and extract several at one time.
Yeah.
For her, there is none to replace those
Yeah.
at all, and
Wow.
she is, there's none there.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a child that, a snaggletooth little child is what it looks like. So, but she's real
But a
bad
cute
too
one.
about. Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Cute
she
one.
is. Yes.
Yeah. A cute one.
But she also, like, she can't open things very well because she's very limited hand coordination. But her hands are small
Uh-huh.
too.
Yeah.
They're fat, but they're small.
Yeah.
And so her grasp is not good. And so a lot of times when she tries to open stuff, she'll open it with
Mm-hmm.
her teeth, and she has chipped the few teeth that she has from doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But so that's another thing. And then she has a lot of balance issues. She doesn't walk very well, so we're
Okay.
having to do, like, try to find inserts, but it's hard with her being a toddler shoe size and her
Oh,
foot
yeah.
swelling.
Yeah.
We can't get a proper shoe. I'm seriously contemplating having to go into shoemaking myself because it is so,
Well.
we cannot find just a great shoe. Like, Billy's shoes are wonderful for helping get her foot inside the shoe,
Mm-hmm.
and zipping it closed all the way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And it helps with her inserts. She used to have SMOs and AFOs. She used to
Mm-hmm.
have those, and now we're just down to inserts.
Okay.
But her balance used to be so bad that she would fall all the time, and she would fall and pretty much hit the same spot on her forehead, and she has a permanent knot on her head from where she's fallen so much. And so,
Wow.
Mom is freaking out, and oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
gosh, after 20 plus times of hitting, she's
Mm-hmm.
got brain damage. I know this is called brain damage, but
They're going to think I'm
thankfully
beating her, too.
yes. Well, thankfully, for the most part, her physicians are very good about recognizing her limitations and
Yeah.
that she does have issues, and that they're willing to work with us on that. And they know.
Yeah.
They
They
know.
understand. Yeah.
Yes. I'm very thankful for that because, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it is concerning sometimes because I'm like, people are going to think I'm abusing my child. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I mean, and she can get into the weirdest stuff. I mean, you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
think a child with limitations like that would necessarily be able to get into weird
Oh, yeah.
situations, but they do.
And quick.
Yes, at one point, and this was just a couple of years ago, she was in this fixation apparently, and I didn't know it, about stuffing stuff in her belly button.
Oh, wow.
And it got to the point at one time she stuffed half of a metal needle threader in her belly button.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
I had to invest in the surgical forceps to try to get in there and get stuff out. That's
Yeah.
how bad it was.
Wow.
And so that I think taught her a lesson not to, because
Yeah.
that hurt, having to get that one
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
But then one of her sinus surgeries, she's got chronic sinusitis that causes asthma flare-ups. And
Right.
so that's another thing we have to constantly kind of stay on top of, is
Mm-hmm.
making sure she's not getting congested. And if she is, how to kind of rectify that.
Yeah.
But in her last sinus surgery, they found the top of an acorn stuffed up her nose.
You have to just, how in the world?
Yes, the doctor come out. He's been her doctor since she was little, the ENT, and he's
Yeah.
wonderful. And he was just coming out laughing. He was like, only Sarah would do this.
I think I'm going to entitle this episode Sarah Hope Syndrome.
Yeah. That's
'Cause
what my mother says she has. And I think that describes it.
That is the only definite medical diagnosis we have, is Sarah Hope Syndrome.
That's
Absolutely. Right. Oh, this would be a good spot for us to jump out here for just a second and take a break. But when we come back, I want, you said she is in school, and I want to talk about that a little bit, about how school's accommodating her, what they're doing to help her. And then we'll close out with a couple of other ideas. So hang around with me. We'll be back here in just a minute with exceptional stories and the people who live them.
We hope you are enjoying this week's episode of Exceptional Stories and the People Who Live Them. If you would like to support our podcast to help it improve and be heard around the world, we have created a way you can do just that. Go to the podcast website at exceptionalstoriespodcast.com and click the support button on the homepage. For as little as $3 per month, you can help keep this podcast available. There will be no pressure, and you can stop anytime you choose. So go to the show website now, exceptionalstoriespodcast.com, and click the support button now to help. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
And now it's time for our sponsor shout out. I want to take a moment and recognize those who have taken advantage of our sponsorship opportunity at www.exceptionalstoriespodcast.com. Faye Dickerson is the first one to sign on as a monthly supporter. Thank you, Faye, for believing in our mission. I promise you your monthly support will make it possible for us to keep sharing these exceptional stories. If you would like to join Faye in supporting our podcast, go to our website at www.exceptionalstoriespodcast.com and click on the support tab on the homepage. For as little as $3 a month, you can play an active role in sharing these exceptional stories. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Now let's get back to our special guest. All right, we are back with Exceptional Stories and the People Who Live Them. My guest today is Rebekah, and we are having a awesome conversation about her daughter, Sarah Hope, and we have just officially diagnosed her on the program with Sarah Hope syndrome. And it's official. We can't take it back. That is the official diagnosis. But before we went to break, we mentioned that she is in school, and she is in the Helen Keller School at Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind in Talladega. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
How long has she been going there?
She has been there since age 6 because I held her back a year or two. I kind of wish now that I had let her go earlier because they do
Yeah.
take children younger than that. And I
Mhm.
wish now I had tried.
Mhm.
But once again, that's one of those things you got to learn and just move
Yeah.
on from. And so, but she has progressed so much because used to at home and stuff, just even simple stuff, potty training, stuff like that. It was like we would take a step forward and then something would happen and it would be 5, 10 steps back. And then it took even longer to get back up to where we were.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we've struggled with that. And she did not, I told you before she had trouble balance issues. Well, she didn't
Mhm.
walk until she was 4.
Okay.
So that was a delay too. So they actually had to help at first, make sure that she was okay and walking and
Mhm.
stuff when she got there, even though she had been walking for a couple of years on her own. But even that simple process is something like she would fall at school.
Yeah.
And so they had to, teach her how to go up and down stairs properly and hold on and
Mhm.
make sure that you're supported and
Yeah.
those type things. So they've really worked with her, and even on hygiene now that she's getting older,
Mhm.
they're really working with her on, how to better take care of yourself because
Yeah.
I have to do everything for her. I mean, I
Sure.
do. She's so
Yeah.
limited.
Mhm.
And she tries so hard.
Mhm.
But she can't always. And
Yeah.
so, especially when we're in a hurry or something, mama that comes swooping in and does
Yeah.
it, so they,
Yeah.
they do a really great job of trying to teach her those things. And then they're working with her on her speech and that type
Okay.
thing. But she's, they started a cheerleading team last year and she's part of that. And she
Yeah.
just loves that so much. But
You sent me a picture of her in her cheerleading uniform.
I did. Yes. She is very proud.
Yeah. Now, I am not, and I got to be careful how I say this. I am not a fan of cheerleading per se. Okay. I have 2 grandsons. If I am ever given a granddaughter and she wants to be a cheerleader, I'll be the loudest one on the sidelines.
Yes.
But until then, I'm going to be reserved and hold it back. But when you sent me that picture of her in a cheerleading uniform, I was like, oh my goodness, this is this is a cheerleader I could run with right here. That was
Yes.
just amazing.
She cheers
Amazing.
for everybody, even if they're on the
Yeah.
opposite team. She cheers
Well,
for 'em, and it's the most precious thing, and she gets
yeah.
so excited for everyone, and that's what makes it so special. And
Yeah.
I personally believe she's the best cheerleader there is
Well,
because
sure.
she really
Yeah.
cheers people on.
Well, she's my favorite. Tell her she's got my vote, okay?
Thank you, I will.
Yeah. Let me ask you this before we run out of time. What advice or suggestion would you give to other parents who are raising special needs kids? Maybe it's that first child and they just seem overwhelmed, and maybe they have found themselves in the situation you were in where nobody knows an answer. Nobody can give anything definite. What have you learned that you can tell that mom that is just scared to death right now?
Having a good support group helps. Finding people
Mm-hmm.
That may not have the same situation but similar circumstances,
Yeah.
that really helps give you a sounding board. But also,
Mm-hmm.
they might have resource information to help you. I'm really big on resource information
Yeah.
and helping people. But also, like I said earlier, going with your gut. If you have a doctor or any kind of specialist that's not listening to you and not understanding you or your child, then you need to rethink who you're seeing. You might need
Right.
to change um, doctors. Or one time Sarah had a speech therapist that and it was through early intervention, and
Mm-hmm.
she did not understand Sarah at all. She was telling me that I needed to talk more to Sarah, that I needed to sing to her and leave out a word and let Sarah fill it in. And I'm like,
Yeah.
the child can't even speak. And I was like, I talk to my child, I sing to her, and it's like totally not on the same page. So
Right.
that those type of people, and they might have good intentions and wanting to
Mm-hmm.
help people, but if they don't understand you and your
Yeah.
child, then you might need to find another route to go. And that's where having a support system, if you can find
Mm-hmm.
anybody with a similar situation, it would
Yeah.
help. Just somebody that's been through it and has maybe a little bit more insight.
Yeah. We're the parents to two special needs children. One of them passed away in 2015, but
Sorry.
we have an older son that's autistic, and then we have our oldest grandson has the same genetic disorder that our youngest son had. So, we're about to go through all of that all over again. And my wife and I were talking the other day. There's no way we would have got through what we went through if we had not had support.
That's right.
If we had not had
Absolutely.
those family members and those friends that when we could not fight, when we were just dead on our feet, they stepped in and they carried the ball for us. And I'm a huge proponent of a support network because when we were going through that with our son, I called a pastor friend of mine and talked to him, and I told him, I said, I can't do this.
Yes.
I cannot do this. And he said, yeah, Steve, you're right. You can't do it by yourself. You need to get some help. And of course, our faith was our ultimate help, but we had some very loving people that just surrounded us and got us through all those tough times. And I think that is so important. And
especially like for me, when
yeah,
Sarah was first born, I was so angry with God
yeah,
at one point. I was
mhm,
so angry, and I said, God, if you let her die, I will never believe in you again.
yeah,
And for me, that's just hard. That's hard
yeah,
when you get to that point. And but when people would say, I'm praying for you, I needed them to pray for us, her and
yeah,
me, because I was at a point where I just could not
mhm,
pray. And so that support, I needed that, and it strengthened me. It gave me
Yeah.
strength that I needed to help Sarah hope and
Yeah.
get through those tough times. So you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Those people, your family, friends, even
Hmm.
strangers, can become
Oh
a
yeah.
support.
Well,
Absolutely.
because of ours, we had extended hospital stays, and the two things always happened every time we went to the hospital. One, we weren't there long before we found somebody that was in a whole lot worse shape than we were in.
Yes. Yes.
And, but because we were there, we were introduced to people that we would not meet at Walmart. We would not meet at church. We wouldn't meet out,
Yeah.
but we met people that were hurting and struggling like we were. And we just fed off each other. And so I'm thankful for those times that we had. For sure. And I'm thankful that you were able to join us today and pull back the curtain a little bit and tell us a little bit about Sarah Hope syndrome and get us on that. With your permission, that picture you sent me of her in the cheerleader outfit, that's the one I'm going to put on this podcast.
Yes,
So when people click
absolutely.
on it, they will see the prettiest, most energetic cheerleader out there.
Yes.
I dare them to find one better than that.
And they can find some videos, I'm sure, on the AIDB Helen Keller Facebook page. And you can hear her screaming, holler, yelling, cheering.
Yeah.
It's precious.
I love it. I love it.
And I have to say this too. These children like this, God gives them abilities that we don't have. She sees through people.
Yeah.
She sees where they're hurting, what they're needing, and she'll say, "Give me a hug" to the roughest, toughest looking people, and it's just precious. I mean, we go out in public, and she's like, "Come here, give me a hug, give me a hug," and that's how she says it. And they just come to her and they melt in her arms.
Well,
And
I'll take a hug from her any day.
thank you.
Any day. Well, we need to wrap this up here. We've gone almost past our time, but thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you enlightening us and telling us a little bit about your journey, and hopefully some folks will hear it and they will get some strength from it and know that, it's okay to not be okay, but be an advocate, speak out, and take care of these kids, because
Absolutely.
the world's not going to take care of them. We're going to have to do it.
No, they're
we're
not.
going to have to do it for sure. But I thank you so much for coming on, and tell Sarah that I want to meet her one day. And
I sure will.
If she wants to, she can do 2 bits for me. I don't care. We'll.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Talk to you later. Hey, before we go, I want to thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. If you're the parent of a special needs child and wish to share your story with us, or you know someone we should talk with on the show, send an email to exceptionalstoriespodcast@gmail.com. I also want to invite you to follow us on our social media pages. You can find us on both Facebook and Instagram at Exceptional Stories Podcast. And lastly, if you found this podcast informative and you would like to keep it going, I encourage you to go to our website at www.exceptionalstoriespodcast.com and click on the support button on our homepage. Join us next week as we share another exceptional story.